Just another magic Monday. Do, do, do. What's up, everybody? Roman Rackwitz here. It's a wonderful Monday, and I thought I'd start talking a little bit more English because I asked you if you want me to do more in English or in German. So far, one person answered on YouTube, and she said, please do it in English. So if you're interested or if you want me to do in English and German, just please comment below wherever you see this video, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Perhaps if you want to have more deep dives, so longer versions, or if you like the smaller snippets, much better. This one is a really important video for me because when I was traveling around the last time, and especially when I were able to visit Istanbul, thanks guys again, it was really fun, and I had a lot of interesting discussions, and also actually with one of my employees, and we talked about, so what's the difference between all these different gamification approaches? What's the difference between us and the others? Is there some kind of USP? Because I think so far I'm really known as the guy who does the interventions on conferences against points, badges, leaderboards, competitions, whatever. But to be honest, that doesn't mean that I think the points or badges are wrong all the time. I think that how we use it or how we focus on them, that's wrong. So we really thought about, okay, what's the difference between our gamification approach and most of the gamification design that you can find out there. And by doing the last 2 or 3 workshops and finishing our workbooks and so structuring everything a little bit better, I think I finally found it. So let's start by thinking about why we like gamification, or why do we call it even gamification? Why are we so fascinated by it? And I think it's the case, or I'm pretty sure it's the case, because we want to use or to unfold the full or the same potential that games can unfold within their players when we think about real-time activities. So we would really love to learn from game-like activities, not just video games, and learn how they are constructed, designed, so that people are really focusing on problem solving within the games. They can focus much longer. They are really eager to come back and do it again. So how can we do that? And if you just think about that very shortly, it's that no one would ever say, hey, I like playing games because I'm getting points. We're getting points very often, but it's not the reason why we play a game, right? It's some kind of feedback within the activity of playing a game that we already like to do. So the point is, games and badges and leaderboards and whatever are always some kind of consequences or second, and never the reason why we really do something. But what are they communicating? What are they transporting? And it is at the end, no matter if we're talking about games, sports, hobbies, so all the stuff that we are doing voluntarily and are intrinsically motivated to do them, I think that it's really easy that we see, okay, there are some kind of problems that we have to overcome, that we are voluntarily trying to overcome. So necessary obstacles in sports, in games, in hobbies, but we love to do them, to perform, to solve them at the end. And then we need some kind of feedback mechanism, for example, that could be points. But at the end, it's the activity itself that already has to be engaging enough. And so this is something that really stuck in my head. Actually, it's pretty simple, right? But if I think about how I'm doing gamification design and what I can see out there, is that let's talk about the stuff that we can see out there. Most often, we see some kind of reward programs. You do something, you get something. That's not bad. Sometimes it's pretty helpful. So, but it's you have the activity already and you don't care about the activity at the end because you're providing points when you have done that. So it's some kind of like a reward system for doing something that's not really engaging in the first place, perhaps. It's more like a bribery, to say it the hard way, but that's the point. Most often gamification approaches don't really care about the activity itself. They think, okay, how can we reward people for doing the already boring activity? How can we focus on the result? How can we reward the result? How can we honor the people for doing something that's not really engaging in the first place? Again, And if you think about that, that's not what games are doing. No game designer would say, hey, the game's shitty, but let's reward the people more with points. No one of us say, hey, I really don't like to do my hobby, but anyway, I'm getting some kind of, I don't know, badges, whatever. So the difference is most gamification approaches and concepts are focusing on the result already, especially when we're talking about gamification software. They can only say, okay, if there's something in the company people don't want to do, or if you have a problem, you want to make it more engaging, we can measure it. And if they have done that, our software will provide some kind of points and badges. We can make some competitions. We can provide some kind of feedback for if people have done that, what's not engaging already. So and then they can get some points, and perhaps it's redeemable, so they can get some stuff and so on. So really nothing that we can find actually in games, right? There we don't have to be bribed to play the game. And that's exactly the difference. In games, or normally in gamification, let's start with the standard gamification stuff. You have an activity that's starting here, and the people really don't like to do that so much. So normally we say, okay, but if they do it, then they will get something here. That's the reward, okay? They will get some kind of points, +1, yay, or whatever. And then at the end, there's some kind of scoreboard, leaderboard, and you can compare yourself and so on. But that's not bad. But the point is you're focusing here. But that means you doesn't focus on the activity itself that is already broken. And this is mainly the difference, I think, from my gamification design approaches to 90% of the others. If that's right, if you think that makes sense and it's the right way to do, this is something you have to figure out. But at the end, if you want to create something sustainable, we have to make a better activity by itself. And the interesting fact is that we have found out that if you make the activity itself much more engaging, you're not relying anymore on their points, on the badges, on their rewards, whatever. And that's a good thing actually, because rewards, so we are getting used to it. So if something is rewarding me today, if I get the same reward tomorrow for the same activity, yeah, okay, nice to have. But the third day, of course I get the reward. I've earned it, so it's not a reward anymore. And so we are getting used to it, and so of course the rewards lose its power. And at the end, I have to put more and more and more rewards into the system. And to be honest, what I don't really get is that we have that kind of incentive system. We have that already in place for 150 years. So why is it now called gamification, now better than before? Because if it would still work like before, and it worked for a period of time very well, but if it would still work like this or be successful, then no one would ask for something like gamification, because we have no problems with motivation. But that's not the case. So why create the same stuff like the last 150 years, but now in a digitalized way? I don't get it, to be honest. So that's the point. We are not focusing on this one, on the result or on the milestone. And then because what happens then? Someone is doing something that he really doesn't like to do, but he's getting rewarded. So he says, okay, let's do that. Then the activity again, it's not really engaging, but I will do that again. And then here's the next result, and the next perhaps 10 plus points this time, whatever. And this is normally how the actual gamification system is working. And I hope so far you get the idea why I don't believe in that kind of system. It just doesn't make sense. And there's another problem, that normally we want people to perform very well in this. So there's a problem. We want our people to solve a problem, to finish something that's not easily to finish, whatever. The problem is, as soon as someone starts to do something and you say, hey, if you achieve successfully something, and at the end of the result, this is the result I want you to achieve, and here's some kind of reward you will get, people are only focused from here, from the starting point to the result. This is what your brain can think about. Okay, I'm here, how can I get most easily to the finish line, because I want to have the reward. And of course this takes away capacity to be creative, to solve a cognitive problem. If we are talking about mechanical, repetitive stuff, sure, let's do that. But I think we all know that that's not the case anymore. How we create product, or how we are productive. What's productivity all about nowadays in these developed countries? It's all about services, smart solutions. So it's about cognitive work. So if we create something that's where we have a starting point and already set endpoint, and we are rewarding that, we take away from people the possibility to stay focused on the activity itself. And this is what I really love to do. That's the point. I don't really care about that stuff. I only care about that stuff. The activity itself, how to make that more engaging, how to change the activity from being less boring to be more engaging. So, but the activity, not the reward, not the result, the activity itself. So this is where all my theories like path to mastery and so on come in place. I will talk about them not in this video, later on. I already have talked a lot about that, but that's the point. The interesting thing is, if you make this more engaging, and then if you create an activity, an overall activity, so from here until here, we are talking about the whole thing, and it's progressing, it's getting harder, then the progress by itself is already some kind of reward, but it's embedded into the activity. Does it make sense? And this is what makes it so interesting, because in games, the reward, so being rewarded in games comes from progressing through levels, but even progressing through one level, finally being able to use the resources much better, finally being able to overcome an obstacle, and so on and so on. So every time we learn something, we have the feeling of progressing. And this is what makes even failing fun, because we are learning. By failing, we see what doesn't work, and now we think, okay, we can do it better. And this depends on the whole principles of game design and gamification. I've talked about them in my slideshows on the 5 pillars of gamification. You can find it there. These are the principles of gamification, and they make the activity itself more engaging, more interesting, by communicating a better progress, by helping you to see what you've already achieved, where you have started, where are you now, so what you've already put what kind of effort you've already put into the system, and that there's still much more to do. And this is, from my point of view, the difference between my gamification philosophy and most of the other stuff you can find out there. And every day I stumble across news, talks, whatever, where people really are only talking about, hey, it's about points and badges, it's about rewarding, it's about creating a competition so that you have a leaderboard and whatever. That's stupid. Really, that's stupid. Games weren't invented by the video game industry. So what makes games interesting is not what you can see on the screen in the first place. They are helping you. The stuff that you can see on the screen helps you, or helps to transport some of the important principles that makes a game so engaging. But just because you can see some points on the game, on the screen in a video game, doesn't say that points are the key factor for less boring activities to make them more engaging. That's just so short-sighted. That's how I think what's the difference. I would love to hear what you think about that. Does it make sense for you? Where do you see the shortcomings of this approach? Where do you think it's sustainable? Let me really know, and then we can go deeper into that. And of course, if it's interesting, I will guide you through my process, and I will show you over the time all of my stuff that I'm using, so that it becomes a better picture and a structured one of how to get started and where to go to, what to focus on, and when to focus on the activity itself, to design that, when to focus on the player, on the user, and how to adjust to the user, and so that we are not relying anymore, or we don't need to rely anymore just on providing points for an activity that's not really engaging. Because a not engaging activity incentivized is still not engaging. Bye.